Now that the Australian qualification framework has been established and set up, there's big implications for master's courses because there's strong research components. Of course, I put in that clip because we don't actually know what that will mean. And it's really every university has got its own response because there's a changing landscape with the government. So basically some universities are saying, oh, we wasted our time, let's go back to what it was before. Some unis are saying, no, let's continue. So I'm not sure what's happening at your uni, but if you come to my session, one of the things we look at is the variety of different models. Some of them are pretty much regular courses and then plus a research methods course with a capstone and a big 6-unit capstone, like a half a semester. And other people are actually embedding it in in a core course throughout the typically 4 semesters if it's a 2-year program, everything in between. So the actual requirements is that students would apply knowledge and skills, creativity and initiative, high-level personal autonomy, mastery. Whoa, masters, mastery? You know, sometimes those two things don't always go together somehow, but obviously that's a sensible requirement. But how do we actually achieve that, especially in the context of a substantial research-based project, capstone or piece of scholarship? So what we've been doing here is we have pretty much mandated 3 units minimum of research training. Could be quantitative, qualitative. And these things develop technical research skills, and that's good. Then they have, students typically have a 6-unit minimum of research project, and that's fine. But it's hard to say how well that, a quarter of a semester, or 3 units, helps students. So really, what we're thinking about is developing research mindedness in content-rich courses. So these courses that are highlighted in blue are just from Masters of Accounting and Finance. I was working with that school about 2 weeks ago. They're content-rich courses. And the green one is the quantitative method, so that's the one that's supposed to be preparing students. What I suppose we'd be looking at in the workshop is saying, well, how do we use the content-rich courses to really explicitly develop student research skills? So, that's an interesting one. So if we reflect on research and employment after undergraduate degree, I think that's about to pop up with a quote 30 seconds later. I might have done something curious in the timing. But basically, this invisible student quote, which I won't have time to go through, it's good it's not there because it's actually quite wordy. And the point is, it's indecipherable. Oh, and it's not there. But if you break it down, this is the quote broken down into someone who doesn't know business and terminology. It actually breaks down really well into the facets of research. Now, this is a student who's reflecting on experience in business, just doing stuff, just doing a bit of research and findings. But when we actually analyse it with the 6 facets of the RSD, it actually makes sense. And to the business school, the message was, we're not talking about esoteric ivory tower stuff. We're talking about things that people do in their working life, and their daily things that, when they're learning masters, things that they can apply to their business. So it's not fancy esoteric stuff, it's practical. So what we're really thinking of is course by course, semester by semester, using those content-rich courses to framing some of those with the RSD to explicitly develop students' research skills in content-rich context before they get to the research methods and especially to those big capstones. So what we're really thinking about is a spiralling through the 2 years of masters, much like Kathy was talking about the development through the oral health, and Susan was talking about some of that incremental development through semesters in animal science. So as the rigour goes up, the students need to make a substantial move in maturing of their research skills. So RSD and content-rich courses, really, one of the emphasis and strengths there is to develop this research mindedness. So the research courses are good for research techniques. And so if you have RSD as a common framework across in those content-rich courses and in the research methods courses, then you can actually shift students towards increasing research skillfulness through the years. Thank you. We're all under the same rules, which is, you know, what universitas et scala.
I need to try to distinguish between what's defined by honours and non-honours degree. So AQF is also being imposed on lots of engineering degree, and I think in this university has been decided that all of our engineering programs need to be honours. So we needed to have the 9 units, the one you described there. So it's not just only for the master, it's also for AQF 8, which is the honours level.
Yes, that's right. And there's huge issues for AQF 7 undergraduate. It doesn't actually use the research word, but it's actually got the skills associated with research. So it's just, you know, how often you use, it doesn't matter if you're using the word research or not. If you break down to the facets of the RSD, almost all of those components come out richly in AQF 7. So good observation, said, and certainly it percolates up into AQF 10 with a PhD, as Michelle Picard's presentation will show. Hi, Pishet.
I mean, I think you you identified a point where what happens at undergraduate. I mean, I see some of my students coming through year 12 with their research projects. If they do the same thing, they'll be great, but we can't put it through the uni ethics system. So I think, and then they sort of lose interest in research, and then now you're dumping them back in masters. So I foresee in 2 years' time some of my undergrads going into masters and then redoing all this research when we should, you know, your spiral should start at year 12. There seems to be a big gap there. So any comments on that, you know?
Yes, this afternoon I'll show you more of what we've been doing lately in terms of primary and secondary schools. So I think there needs to be ongoing incremental development as the big opportunity for education over many years. If what's true enough for what I said of 4 semesters is semesters, I think we need to have a coherent thread in formal education. And so that, like, I was at Adelaide High School yesterday talking with one Year 8 science teacher. My background is science teaching. And we're talking about really using the research skill development framework in her term 4 biology for Year 8s. And we won't necessarily, we may or may not use the word research, we'll just kind of, it's a fluid conversation. But we need to see the incremental development of the skills associated with research. The 2 groups of educators who use the word research most, from my experience, are PhD supervisors and primary school teachers. And so research is often a protected space, so because it's only the special people do it. But I think if you don't make it a protected space, like people can engage in research processes, it's just that often we do it very badly or sloppily. Anything can be done rigorously and sloppily. So I think we have to, I don't think the word research needs to be protected. I think we have to be realistic about how do we actually make sure that students are doing a really research skillful job in Year 12, you know, what has to happen in advance of that? Because in South Australia, we use the word, it's called the research project, it's mandatory. Every student in South Australia in Year 12 has to do that. How well do they do it? Well, you know, there's a lot of controversy. It might be scrapped if the new government gets in 2 years' time, but we don't know. But the thing is, I'm talking with a Year 8 teacher because I'm not so worried about them doing research. I'm worried about the development of research skills way in advance of Year 12, in advance of your master's courses, in advance of our undergraduate degrees, you know, and so that they would all have that part to play. Even though if we've got content-rich courses, I'm not really advocating at all for having kind of research-orientated courses. Sometimes when I talk with programs, I say you need to. I think you'd be better off getting rid of some of these research-orientated courses because the students aren't identifying with them. So it's and May's presentation on optimising problem solving. They don't use the word research at all with the first year mechanical engineering students because that would turn them off. So she's articulating the same set of skills with problem solving. Thank you.